There we have it. 3 eggs in. Now comes the oil. The oil, like everyone, you know, every good Hanukkah lesson for every teacher is oil is the biggest paradox. It's a half a cup of oil. Oil seeps within and then rises above. I feel like on shluchos, that's really something that we work on, but that's in general, right? You have to be part of the community, but then you also have to rise above them. We like to use the world. Look at today. We have to use technology, right? That's our message. We don't stay away from it. We go in. We're like oil. We seep in, yet we have to remember to rise above as well. That take the good, get in there, do what you need to do, and make sure to stay above it. And before I even mix it, I'm going to put in the last ingredient over here, which is the salt. Salt is indestructible, all right? It's been around. I'm putting in 2 tablespoons of salt. And I think that really represents our, I think, connection to Hashem, right? And his love for us and his care for us, that it's really indestructible. There's nothing that can happen that can take that connection away. There's nothing you can do that can make you go too far off. Salt, remember that when you're putting in your salt, relationships like between us and Hashem and between us and the Rebbe are really just something that lasts forever. I'm mixing that all together. All these little things we need to think about, especially at a time when there's so many questions. Now that I have that mixed in, a nice easy mixture, zero stress, and almost no mess. So we got a no stress, no mess recipe going on. And now I am ready for my flour. I like to add the flour in first as while it's still wet, I will use a spoon, and then soon I'll get down and, you know, dirty with that flour and mixture. I'm going to pour in about 2-3 cups at a time. Of course, I'm using an entire bag because I want to be able to make the bracha today and join this amazing Challah bake and international. Mixing that up over here. And maybe now's a good time to throw in that promo for the Bosch, Nini, right? If you have a Bosch, you don't have to do this, but this is more fun. And my kids love to do this as well. Sometimes when I'm making for many people, I'll just have 5 or 6 bowls on the island right over here. Small kitchen, but gets a lot done. And we'll all make our own 5-pound recipe, and then you're good to go.
Awesome activity. It takes much longer this way, so it's much better.
There's nothing else than trying to kill time, right? That's our number one goal.
Total motto of quarantine, that's for sure.
Yes, that's what we're trying. So exactly, if it takes enough time, we are going to do it. Just mixing that up over here. A little more flour into my nice and very warm mixture. So I see it's going to rise really well. And then I'm going to put on my gloves and make this happen. It's such a great recipe and everything comes out right then and there. I'm going to go there right now. Mix that up. And then Nini will send it right over to you to show them what happens after you have your dough.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
You know, you can see me. It's really, when you have a big bowl like this, there's no mess. It stays in the bowl. It's soft. And what I'll tell you, and then I'll do it, is that once it's done, once the dough is not sticky anymore and forms a nice ball like I will have in a minute, I'm going to put a little bit of oil on the top and let it rise for at least an hour, covered. So either you can use a wet towel, some people like to use a warm towel, or I just put saran wrap on top, and just make sure that you're in a nice warm room. Nowadays, it shouldn't be a problem, but in the winter, sometimes you forget and your oven's not on in the morning when you put your challah up, and you are good to go. We're just about finished here. I'm going to show you what we have, a beautiful challah mixture. And I'd like to think about, you know, the flour and the kneading. That's hard work. If anyone knows me, I love hard work. It doesn't scare me. I think that hard work is really right. We're in the island of Asiya. I always say, we're here to work. So when you're doing that hard work, remember that all the other stuff is great, but it actually takes our hard work and to see the results. I think that's what Sarah was saying. You know, challah represents, you put in the work, and then hopefully you can see the results. You're going to get something. And with this recipe, you'll get the success you were looking for. But it's always a matter of, you got to go in there, you got to get your hands dirty. Don't wait for somebody else to buy you a bosh. Just go ahead and do it yourself. Here, this dough is actually exactly what I want it to look like. It is nice and firm and beautiful. I'm going to form it into a nice ball, and then I'm going to show you a nice perfect ball over here. Mixed it. Check it out. Going to cover that with a little bit of oil. Got to remember that we're all in this together. We've got a special mitzvah just for us that we can do at home that nourishes our family spiritually and physically. And then Nini's going to impress you with everyone else goes. I don't know who our tech person is, but we're ready for the next kitchen. Giving it over to my sister. Take it away.
Now we have Mrs. Schmuckler from Texas. Mrs. Frema.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Corpus Christi, Texas. Adla, that was beautiful. Usually I'm the one saying these words or leading the challah bake, so it was actually nice to sit back and actually really reflect and listen to, the beauty of the ingredients and challah all together. So like Adla said, when we were asked, it was like, we lead challah bakes in communities, but like, who wants to really watch challah like if they're making it? But then I realized that at home when I lived in Crown Heights, I never made challah besides for shlisel challah. So today I'm here. I got Adla's dough that beautifully rose. We switched it to a smaller bowl as it rose, and we are going to start. So the first part of the challah is, where's the camera over here? Sorry, we've got it. Is that we're going to remove a piece of challah and we are going to say the bracha. And this is, the most special part of baking of the challah. It's the time to really reflect and daven. And over these past few weeks, the davening has been overwhelming. Every week davening for more people, and really having in the thoughts. Could you turn on? Sorry, my technician here. We're slightly slow today. But so I'm going to say we're going to dedicate this today, obviously, for everybody who needs a refuah shalema during this time. And specifically today, we're going to dedicate it to my aunt, Chai Rivka Bas Chiena, who needs a complete refuah shalema. And being that we're a lot of women making challah, I'm also going to say for my brother-in-law, Shmuel Ben Rachalea, they should have a complete refuah shalema, and everyone else who needs one for health, for happiness, for children, anything that anyone needs, they should have a complete Yeshua in any way, and Hashem should just give everyone brachos in abundance and in a revealed, open way. So the first thing I'm going to do is cut off a small piece, big as about a golf ball, and we're going to say the bracha, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvayso v'tzivanu l'hafresh challah. This part of the challah is going to go into silver foil, and you will burn it alone after.
Amen.
Okay, so now starting, most people growing up with hair or different things can figure out a 3-braid. Today, I'm going to show you how to make a 4-braid, or, the beginner learner who wants to go a little bit above the 3. We're going to go to 6-braid, which is more advanced, but that's the way I personally love it. And then I'm also going to show you how to do a braided round challah. I know it's not Rosh Hashanah, but it's still a really pretty challah. And I figured that's a pretty one to learn as well. So some people might use a scale. If you want like perfectly even challah, you can measure out your dough balls into about 1 pound each to get like a 1 pound challah. Not necessary, but if you want exact amounts, you can even measure out the strands, different things. I'm going to put this on the side. I personally just kind of eyeball it, but that is a good way to start. We're going to cut off a piece. We're going to cut it into 4 equal parts. And we are going to roll them into equal strands. And try to roll as fast as possible, so maybe they won't be as neat as I might always have it, but it will work. always good and handy is to have some extra flour in case your dough is a little oily or you want a little floured surface. It's just easy to help with challah rolling. Okay, so here with the 4 braid, we've got 4 nice strands, and we're kind of gonna go back to like preschool and make like a weave. We're gonna pinch the tops together, starting by the outer one. You're gonna go over, under, and over, and repeat. We're weaving our challah back and forth. So it's over, under, over, over, under, over. It's more of a flatter style challah that will rise, but it's more of like a bread, and it's just pretty, gives it a little up and up.
I feel like kids love to do this. It's more interactive than just the braid, and it comes out really spectacular looking.
Yeah, you feel like you're kind of you're making a specialty challah, but it's easy to follow along, easy to make. If you use bigger strands, it is thicker and it is bigger, but you are left with a very pretty challah. Now, let's say, okay, I'll do the toppings after, but there is one topping. I'd want that, we'll do the toppings after. Okay, we're gonna go now to a 6 braid. So 6 braid, you're gonna need a little bit of a bigger piece if you want it nice and full. So this one we're gonna cut into 6. So Adla, even if we use a bosh, we still get a workout on the arms, rolling them into pieces. So you're not free at all.
It's not the same.
Nah, it's true. You know what? I only got a bosh last year, and I used to almost convince myself that hand making is better, and you really connect to the dough, which it is, and it really brings that Shabbos challah bracha into the home. But I have to say, once I got it, I just, no turning back. No turning back. Maybe you'll join me on that bandwagon.
I'd like to tell people that Mimi lives, and she's part of the Ufaratz, the circle, shluchim that live at least 2 hours away from Chalav Yisrael, mikvahs, and for sure schools. So all the mitzvahs other women are a real challenge and test, and she has really excelled in it. She has a deli. She's serving food and makes everything from scratch. You know, cinnamon buns, pizza, you name it, she's got it.
We get very good use of our kitchen here. Quarantine hasn't changed us that much, but we still miss people. So that is okay. We've got our 6 braids right here. Again, we are going to pinch them at the top. A nice pinch. If you want it a little longer or thicker, you can make those. We're going to be starting with the 2 outer ones. You pick them up. You take the one on the left, kind of bring it over, tuck it under the second outer one on the right. You're going to now keep it standing, and divide the ones that are on bottom to create like a middle. We put 2 on one side, 2 on the other side, bring the one that you're holding down to the middle. So now what you're working with is one that is above, one that's in the middle, 2 on one side, 2 on the other. And this is how it goes. This is going to be your marker, the one that's above. Whichever piece is above, you look to the strand that is right below it. You're going to pick it up and cross over. Now you bring the one that was above to the middle. So you move over your 2, that you're the one that was in the middle, to create it back on the side with this partner. Bring down. So again, we've got one above, one in the middle on either side. So okay, this is our one that's above. We're going to cross over, bring this one to the middle. This one is above, bring this one over, bring this one to the middle. We look at our marker, the one that is right below it. We cross over and bring this one to the middle. As it gets a little lower, you have to kind of keep pushing your pieces out a little bit to maintain the shape. But it's really the same technique. The more even your strands are, the more like straight your challah will stay. And kind of like Adla said, this is more the unifying part of like challah. It's like braiding it all together. So taking separate strands and just little pieces of dough and creating beautiful masterpieces that come together. And I personally like the 6 braid. The 6 braid is used. It does reflect the lechem hapanim in the base of Mikdash, where they had 12 challahs. So by taking 2 challahs, 6 braid and 6 braids, that brings it to be 12 at our table. Okay, so that would be the 6 braided technique. Now I'm going to show you how to do a rounded challah. You could just take one and make a little strand like the good old raisin challah that we used to buy in the store. But this one, I like that it's a little prettier and a little fancier for a round. With this, let's say Rosh Hashanah, especially when we use round, we like a nice sweet challah. So I'm going to make this one into a cinnamon one. I used to just like sprinkle my cinnamon on top, but then I felt like the challah didn't actually get like that full cinnamon taste. It was more like just the topping of a sprinkle. So the way I do it is I divide my challah into 4 again. As I as I roll out each dough, I'm also going to take it, dip it into a bowl that is already, it's a mix of cinnamon, brown sugar, whichever sugar you might like. I like brown sugar and I have a little bit. And this way you have your challah strands. And when you're going to bake it, it's actually really going to be infused with all that cinnamon flavor on the inside, almost like a cinnamon babka or a cinnamon roll, just because it's going to be blended all together. So we're going to do 1, 2. We're going to do third one over here. You add in a little oil, it could also stick a little bit better and really give it like a pasty taste. Depends how much of a preference you would like it to be together. And this is how, if I'm infusing with chocolate or with pesto challah or different things, if I really want that taste to get within, I dip my pieces in. So it's not just a, slice on top, but it's actually the whole entire challah infused. So this one's done a little different. We're going back to preschool and playing tic-tac-toe this time, not playing with the wheat. So we're going to keep 2 like this. And now we're going to do 1 above and 1 under, kind of making a little X, not an X, like a real tic-tac-toe. Going to keep the middles pretty close together. And then we're going to start crisscrossing. We take 1 strand wherever you start, whichever direction you can start, because you could go either way. And we're going to cross over. Take the next one. You're kind of working with like the 2s, the 2s, the 2s, and the 2s. So you take 1 in the same direction, cross over, cross over, cross over, cross over. But now, if you keep crossing, it wouldn't work. So now you're going to go the opposite direction. The one that you crossed over, cross over. Now you're kind of almost interlocking the old ones. Like now you're not working with those same 2, but you're interlocking and twisting it. So now we did 1 more round. Usually I get around 3, depends how long. Now we're going to cross over and just tuck it in. You're going again the opposite way. You kind of go right, left, right, cross over and tuck in. And you could just tuck in any extras. And then you're left with a really, really beautiful round twisted challah. This is like how I make mine for a tishrei, and they're just beautiful. They're gorgeous. If you bake them in a round pan, that's ideal because it will keep the shape. But I also sometimes
Mimi, you have a little helper who's
oh, hi,
taking a
Charna.
little thing as big as an egg.
Didn't even notice. Charna is my big helper. And her goal before she turns 6 this summer is to master that 6th grade. So she actually really tries to help me every single week in the kitchen. Okay, so now I'm going to show you, we're going to do the egging part. And you could go there and make your challah. So again, we're going to check our egg. Some people like to add water into their egg a little bit. Some people, I like personally try to use more yolk than the white part. Take it, you mix it up with a little egg washer, and you're going to egg it. So let's say you're in the mood of a great sweet crumb challah. That's also my favorite for tishrei, but in general, Adla knows the first thing I do when I come to New York is go to a bakery and buy a sweet roll. I think that's the thing I miss the most. That's just something
We walk into the marketplace or Gumbos and we say, step aside. This lady hasn't seen a kosher bakery in 6 months.
Exactly.
We are going straight to the sweet roll.
We're going straight there and we're digging in. So over here, I have a really sweet crumb recipe. I got it from Chabad.org. It's under their streusel challah, raisin challah. It's half a cup of sugar, half a cup of flour, a teaspoon of vanilla, and 5 teaspoons of oil. You just take it, you crumble it together, and you just pour it over your egg challah. And that's going to give it a really, really nice sweet crumb touch. You may not see the shape as well, but the taste is doubly delicious. So that is fine. And now let's say you have a 6th grade. You know, there's different spicing you could do. You could do an everything spice that you could get in the kosher store or Trader Joe's, a sesame spice, and a poppy seed. I once saw though something really pretty. If you want to like sit and give your kids a craft or take time to do, if you egg your challah and you want to make your challah just look a little bit artsy, is that after you egg it, get a nice little egg wash going. And really, though, it's good to leave your challah like after you braid it, to give it about like a half hour of a second rising before you egg it, or even once you egg it. This way, it won't separate when you put it into the oven. I don't always do it. Not always do we have time on Fridays, but if you give it that second rising, it really keeps your challah's form and it won't like split apart the pieces.
I think also because as you're braiding it, you're kind of deflating the dough a little bit and it lets it
Right.
like go back.
So it kind of gives it an extra rise technique. So let's say here we go. I've got poppy seeds and I've got sesame seeds. So we're doing a black and white edition. People have black and white Chabad. They do different things. So you kind of take it. It's a little painstaking, but if you do like every other strand, like black and white, you see a little black here, you kind of like place it as opposed to just pouring it on. You would get a really pretty black and white effect. You could even add in that like you could do black and white, different ones. You could even then add in your everything spice. It kind
Mimi,
of like,
you're even impressing me.
you're throwing in some everything, and like it kind of like decorates your challah in like a really pretty way. Or we could just do what I generally do, literally, you know, put out the sesame seeds and that is perfect. But if you want to give it a more artsy look, this is the way to do it. So then after we bake this challah, depending on your oven and your temperature, oh, here we go. Cherna came in with a gorgeous 3 braid. So she's showing that off with a regular 3 braid. Stunning, Cherna, you're a pro. Oh, if you're doing the cinnamon, you do the cinnamon, then you would egg it on top. I do not put anything else, but I would put a little egg to give it like a nice little crust and shine, and it doesn't dry out. Depending on your oven and you know the temperature of where you live at, you could bake it between 350 or 375. In my home, I bake it on 375, but I know like in New York, I would bake it on 350 for anywhere between 35 to 45 minutes, depending also oven and temperature. For me, 375, 45 minutes works perfect. 20 minutes midway, I switch out my trays if I have 2 trays. And then we're going to pop these in the oven and we will show you end results, what they look like. Okay, we've got. So here would be a beautiful 6 braid. The shape is nice. I didn't give the second rising here, it's separated, but for me, this is my go-to challah, 6 braid sesame. This is the way we like it. But here would be a 4 braid. That's kind of a little flatter, but it's got that pretty weave with the everything. This is how beautiful a round one with this crumb on top is. Rosh Hashanah, biggest hit, or even during the week, just a regular braid with the sweet crumb. We love it. It's like eating cake. These you could kind of just see without the toppings, just a little better. The round, just look how beautiful the lines are. It's just, I personally like this better than just the little bit of a round. And then obviously you could just make little bulk cloth that just roll them up, go to Friday afternoon. If the kids want to bite into the big challah, which we've had many times, we have little ones for them to take, just the 4 and the 3. And that is basically how we make challah. And ever since moving here, yes, you know, as Adla said, things are pretty far. So mikvah is a harder one, but making challah weekly in my kitchen is something I really connect to and I really love. My kids look forward to making challah with me every week, and the community, it's just been also a way to communicate with people, connect with people, and definitely feel making challah definitely brings a lot of brachos and just simcha and joy, and especially the smell that really does it all, just makes Shabbos feel really part of our home. So passing you back to New Jersey, we thank you guys for joining us on this Friday afternoon. And I hope you guys, enjoy the art of challah, the making of challah, and everyone should just have simcha and only the brachos that it brings.
Amen.
Making challah with my mommy.
Sharna, the cutest little shlucha.
That's Charna Schmuckler for you.
Nini, it's really just amazing. And just to point out that Nini is on a different time zone. So she was up at the crack of dawn getting those challahs ready. And
Not such a crack of dawn, but just a little earlier. Just a little earlier.
And I think I finally learned how to make that 6th braid, which is always embarrassing when I can't figure it out.
Well, Chaya and Chava could help you with that one for sure.
I throw my kids in. That's child labor.
Takes up more time. Knead and braid. That's our motto.
Ayla and Nini, you were fabulous as always, including our little guest there. Thank you so much. I think everybody, even experienced challah bakers, can learn something new. I learned about kosher salt, Ayla. Thank you.
You haven't. Oh, Sarah.
What?
I said it's clear you haven't been watching the Sister Shabbat show.
Because that comes up on every single time.
Well,
at least
you got me now.
I only have
Thank
2
you.
spices
Thank
at
you
home.
so much, Ayla and Nini. You were fabulous.
Nini needs
There
her
was
own show.
Yes. Have a wonderful Shabbos.
Have a wonderful
There was a woman named Mrs. Rachel Fogelman, and she used to write into the Rebbe a number of times requesting a bracha for a shidduch for her sister. At one point, she actually came by the Rebbe with some of her students, along with a class mother. And after her students passed by the Rebbe, the class mother asked to speak to the Rebbe privately. And when the Rebbe finished with the class mother, the Rebbe called Mrs. Fogelman in. And the Rebbe said, this mother just asked for a bracha, for a shidduch for her daughter. If you help this woman find a shidduch for her daughter, you're going to have the schus that your sister should have a shidduch too. Because it says those that daven for their friends, they get answered first. Later on, once this program is over, Nshei Chabad is encouraging all Jewish women around the world, when you're lighting candles, daven for another person. I want to put a plug in. Bonei Olam is doing a campaign where they want 18,000 women to give tzedakah $1 a week. If you're not part of this campaign to give money towards people that are davening for children, while you're davening for them, you could do something practical. You could go to oneof18k.com and you can join Bonei Olam's unbelievable campaign. When you're davening for somebody else, have in mind that your tefillas, what is close to your heart, will get answered as well. There was a child who once wrote into the Rebbe, and he asked, if I daven for a year straight for a musical instrument, will I get it? And the Rebbe responded, imagine you have the opportunity to meet with the president. Would you ask for a little red candy? Willing to grant you anything that you wanted? The Rebbe wrote to this child, Shlomo Melech, when he was 12 years old, could have requested anything. And what did he request? Wisdom, a wise heart, and he also got all the other brachas. So when we're davening at Lichbenchen today, we're davening for other people. And also, let's daven for the most important things, not just the candy, not just the musical instrument. If we're davening for Mashiach, if we're going to be davening for the important things, we're also going to be getting everything that our heart desires. So please, today, give tzedakah, daven for Mashiach, daven for other people. I just want to remind you also, you can see on COL and download the program for tomorrow, since we can't do Zoom on Shabbos, at 5:30 p.m. if everybody in their own homes can say the Rebbe and Rebbetzins Kapitel and learn the download from COL, a Pirkei Avos. Again, it's the Parak Shishi, Mishnah Aleph. It's in Lekutei Sichos Daled. You can go to COL and download it, or learn anything in Pirkei Avos at that time. So we got tonight that Jewish women around the world are going to be lighting together. And we have tomorrow that Jewish women, Nshei Chabad, is going to be learning Inyan and Gula Mashiach and bringing Mashiach closer. On that note, it is my pleasure to pass the mic virtually to Itty Kalmanson, who's going to be teaching us a beautiful mimer. Thank you, everybody, for joining.
Thank you, Sarah, very much for coordinating this so nicely. And thank you to all the organizers of Nshei. I just learned yesterday about one of the things about Parshas Bamidbar. This wasn't even, planned to talk about this, but one of the things about Bamidbar, the Gemara calls it the Sefer Pikudim. It's like the book of Numbers, and one of the beautiful things that the Rebbe tells us about it is that when we get together in numbers, we actually bring down a higher quality of godliness to the world. So although we do this learning, hopefully in our own communities throughout most of the year, it's amazing to get together and have such a big crowd of us learning together. Okay, so what we're going to learn today is a little mimer that will prepare us for Shavuos. But I think it's very exciting to mention that when we're talking about preparing for Shavuos, preparing about stepping into receiving the Torah again, we could take this opportunity to zoom out a little bit into what happens when we introduce someone to Torah and mitzvahs. Sometimes the people in our communities, sometimes our very own children. Because of course our goal is, we don't want that when they get older, they will turn away from it. The difference between parenting with confidence or parenting with fear is, God forbid, sometimes, God forbid, when we're afraid, what if my child rebels when they get older? What if my child is going to want to do things that are counter to Hashem's will versus wanting to do mitzvahs? So the good news is that we could no longer induct our children into this relationship, right? We could no longer teach them about it in superficial ways that were ways of the past, right? We can no longer teach them, if you don't dress tznius, it won't be good for your reputation, right? Because kids don't care about that. I have friends who, I'd rather have that kind of reputation. We can no longer teach them, do this or you'll get punished. Today, kids can run away from home. They're independent. Everyone can do whatever they want. And so the good news is we can't really we can't stick to and cling to the superficial reasons that we used to have for observing Torah mitzvahs. And so our only option that's left today is teaching our children, teaching our community members, and teaching ourselves what is the actual, real, true reason that we step into Shavuos again, that we step into Matan Torah, that we step into taking on the Torah and mitzvahs all over again. So I'm going to share my screen so that everyone can see the mimer that we're learning. But, okay, one second, I'm just gonna share it. This is the mimer from the latest year that the Rebbe said, Maimarim, one of the two latest years that the Rebbe gave us, Maimarim, Tafshin Memches, Tismach. And the pasuk that we're going to look at is a pasuk that is a prophecy from Nshei. So let me bring that up. This prophecy of Nshei, let's look at it for a second. Nshei gives us this prophecy from Hashem, right? He says, Ve'arastichli la'olam, I am going to betroth you to me forever. Ve'arastichli b'tzedek u'b'mishpat u'b'chesed u'b'rachamim. I'm going to betroth you to me with tzedek. We'll talk about the righteousness, with mishpat, with the laws, with justice, with kindness, and with compassion. Verstichli be'emuna, and I'll bind you to me, I'll betroth you to me with emuna, with faithfulness. V'yadata es Hashem, and you should know Hashem. So the Alter Rebbe has one way of explaining this to us. The Alter Rebbe explains that the Erisin, the betrothal between the Jewish people and Hashem started with Matan Torah, but ultimately we're waiting for the Li'olam part, we're waiting for the forever part, for it to be a true union for when Mashiach comes. The Rebbe, on the other hand, takes us a step further and highlights the special connection that actually happened during Matan Torah that could never be broken, the La'olam, the relationship we entered into, that is forever. So we're going to start, the beginning, the first sentence of the Maimer is the Pasuk, and then the Rebbe gives context that this is the Tzemach Tzedek said this and when he said it. We're going to start in the second paragraph, the paragraph that starts V'hine nekudas ha'inyan, second paragraph. V'hine nekudas ha'inyan hamavur behadrush sham hi. What's the main point that the Tzemach Tzedek discusses there? Shepsukim ela v'arstichali v'gaimer v'yadatas Hashem medabrim adis hachidush de Matan Torah. The arstich in Hebrew, you could actually translate it grammatically two ways, right? The grammar of the erastich, it could either be and I will, or it could be and I have. So here we're taking the and I have. I have betrothed you to me during Matan Torah. De Matan Torah hi inyan ersin di Yisrael v'kudsha bricha v'arstichli. During Matan Torah, what happened is that we stepped into an erison with Hashem. And the reason why I'm not even translating that is because in the next sentence, we're going to actually discuss exactly what an erison is. Versichli, de k'moishin in erison v'kiddushin b'pashtus, hu, de aser la'achula alma kehekdesh. We see with a betrothal in just simply in Jewish law that erison and kiddushin simply, the purpose is to separate these two and bind them to each other. Now look at how the Rebbe put these two mitzvahs in the same sentence here, ersin and kiddushin. So just really quickly to explain what these two things are, because today we don't actually observe them the way the Jewish people have in most of old history. The way people used to observe these two mitzvahs of ersin and kiddushin is that they would actually have many months in between the two. Both of these are legal binding of two people to each other, a husband and a wife together. Erison is when a bacher goes out and he chooses a Challah for himself, a man chooses a bride, and he actually betroths her to him. He gives her a ring, he says, Hareat mikudeshet li, they have a big sudas mitzvah. It is a mitzvah of the Torah. But then there's not a chuppah and there's not intimacy. They go back, they don't live together, right? She goes back to her mother's home and begins to prepare for a wedding. He goes back to yeshiva and prepares everything that he has to prepare. And then a period of many months go by. Sometimes during certain eras, it was a period of 12 months. And then when they were ready, they would get together and they would have the second mitzvah, the mitzvah of kiddushin, which is the binding of having a chuppah and then living together. So erison meant that they were completely married. They weren't allowed to marry anyone else. The laws of marriage applied, but they were not living together. In fact, they weren't allowed to live together unless they had kiddushin, they had the wedding. Because of galus, right, and because the misfortunes that happened to our people throughout history, what ended up happening is that people would be betrothed to one another, right? They would be promised and married to each other in the first way with an erison, but it created many agunais because of maybe a family got, chased out of town, or they were running away because of some other tragedy, and then they would lose each other, lose touch, and then they wouldn't know where each other was, but it was really, the binding was there. So because of that, today we don't do it that way. We actually do Ersin and Kiddushin under the chuppah at the same time. But as you notice, when you look at a chuppah, there's 2 separate cups of wine. They have to drink from each. So it's 2 separate mitzvahs that they do, just simply we do it at the same time. What is the idea here with Matan Torah? During Matan Torah, we stepped into a relationship, into a wedding, into a betrothal with God. So yes, there's that one step, which is we are no longer bound, we're no longer tied to the other nations. And actually, one of the most moving things that happens every time we do a mitzvah is that, you know, throughout our lives, we're held in the captivity of our nefesh bahami and our nefesh bahami, the sitra achra, the other side. We're held in captivity to the whims of our body, and we have temptations like, oh my gosh, we saw something, we want to look at it, or we have a thought that comes in our mind that may be negative or may be inappropriate, and we want to dwell on that. So we have a lot of temptations. But the amazing promise is that Asher Kiddishanu b'mitzvaysav, who sanctifies us with his mitzvahs, who separates us from the rest of the world during his mitzvahs. When a Jew does a mitzvah, in that moment, we are completely bound to Hashem, and we actually do not have, we're let go of, right? We're unchained from all those other temptations. So God gives us these mitzvahs, and he like sweeps us up into his arms. Every time we do a mitzvah, we're freed up from the other temptations that threaten us, and we're united and connected to God as one. But so what's happening here with this Ersin? What the Rebbe is teaching us here is that just like with a Ersin and Kiddushin here in this world, right? Just like with a betrothal and a marriage that happens, which separates a person from all others, right? And binds them and unites them with their spouse. So too, Kain Haya, we're skipping the brackets, right? Kain Haya gam b'matan Torah, she'az nasu Yisrael miyuchadim u'me'usharim lakadosh baruch hu. This also happened with Matan Torah. When we became one, we became united with God in this bond of marriage. And here is, although we're going to learn more of this inside, here is the key. When we are introducing our child to Yiddishkeit, or when we're introducing even ourselves, right? We always want to learn more, or anybody that we learn with, our chavrusas, when we introduce someone, we're going to accept the Torah again. God forbid we should present it in a context that is superficial. God forbid we should express it in the context of, we do it because it enriches our life and then we're happier. Is it true that we're happier? Of course we're happier, but is that the point? It's not the point. If we introduce it in that way, Shabbos adds family bonding time. And yes, it does, absolutely. And that's really, really important. But what if someone doesn't have a family? Do they then not? So God forbid we should settle with only, right? It's okay to go in also with the other beautiful reasons, but God forbid we should settle only with them. We must today, especially that we're standing at the brink of the Kiddushin, we're standing at the brink of actually having the full revelation, the full Yediyah of Hashem, Yadatem es Hashem. So we should, the way we must prepare is by stepping into it in the context of the relationship that God yearns to have from us, and that each one of our neshamas yearns to have with God. So just a simple little example, right? Let's say my child comes to me and says, I don't want to make a bracha. I'm not in the mood, right? If I give him the idea that the bracha is something that is good for his reputation, or something that makes him a good boy, or something that mommy wants, if those things don't matter to him, that's it. We're locking horns. We have a fight, because mommy wants it, but I don't. So perfect rebellion. I won't say a bracha, right? Or this makes you a good boy. Well, what if he's feeling guilty inside and he doesn't want to be a good boy, right? That happens all the time. He wants to express that he's not a good person. He wants to rebel. So here you gave him the perfect ammunition. But what if he comes to you and he says, I don't want to make a bracha. I'm not in the mood. And of course, we're talking right now about children of a certain age, right? Like 8, 9, 10, 11. We're not talking about a 2-year-old, 3-year-old. There are different approaches. There's, of course, the 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds. But when he comes and says, I don't want to make a bracha, what if we simply said to them, wow, you better tell that to Hashem. He's the one who's waiting for it. And then just leave the room. And now you leave the child to wrestle with his own nefesh eliki, nefesh bahami over there, right? His own yearning for, oh, Hashem wants it. I'm not going to get attention for not doing it. Do I really not want to? And this may not work in a second, and it definitely won't work if we do it as a technique or a trick. This only works when we fully live that way. If our deepest desire is to be in the relationship, or to come closer to God and to bring others closer to God, to reveal that part of us, the Knesset Yisrael part of us, the inside part of us that's related, that yearns for God, then that does trickle down to our children, meaning the other, it's not a fear tactic anymore. It's like we liberate the nefesh eliki to express herself, the godly soul, the yearning for God to express herself. And I don't know Sarla, I'm going to ask you to please tell me when this session ends because we started late. So I forgot to look at the time to pace ourselves appropriately. Sarla, whenever you're ready, just jump in and let me know when this session ends. But what I want to point out really carefully here is we have in the Nevuah of, here, I'll put that up again. We have here the fundamentals of what makes a successful relationship last forever. What does a relationship even mean? So God says, I'm binding you to me, and I'm binding you with kindness, and I'm binding you with righteousness, and I'm binding you with emunah, which is commitment. And the most important thing comes to the conclusion is, V'yadat es Hashem, I promise you, you will know me. I will make myself known to you. And this is what we're living right now, right? I will make myself known to you started with Matan Torah, but that part of it, the Kiddushin, the true intimacy of knowing each other, of seeing each other, of really getting to know each other, that is not fully available to us right now. Of course, it's available through Hasidus, which is why we know that today, to keep Torah and mitzvahs, it's nearly impossible to do that with joy and continuity, right, and commitment without Hasidus, because Hasidus is that beginning of the process of V'yadat es Hashem. When we want to empower our children or empower anyone to keep Torah and mitzvahs, the answer is learning. This is a relationship, and we need to know God. We need to know God's love for us, God's yearning for us. We need to know God's dream, which is having a beautiful world, right? And we need to have the excitement of making God's dream come true, which is, of course, the deepest excitement of our own soul as well. So let's go further on in here in the Mimer. So where did this process start, right? Where did God saying, come, I choose you from all others. You are my beloved. You are my bride. You are my wife. That started with Matan Torah. The Eris and the Matan Torah Gufa Yesh Gimel Dargos. There were 3 levels at the binding of Matan Torah. K'meshekasuv Verstichli la'olam, bind you to me forever. Then I bind you b'tzedek, and then I bind you with emunah. From these, we come afterwards to V'yadat es Hashem, knowing God. Shidarga chi nalis, like we just said, this is the highest form of unity and intimacy. Sheb bivchinas hatayra, which is through the learning, the teaching, the getting to really know Hashem. Shemigim lidias Hashem through which we come to know God. And of course, the completion of this prophecy, the completion of this promise of God to us as his wife, I will reveal myself to you. You will know me. We will have an intimate bond that is coming up. That will be complete in the future. And then it will be Shayach. We will have the new Torah that comes in the future. That Torah that we're going to receive, we've already been given it, because everything was given at once. So what is going to be new? What does it mean, a new Torah that's going to be given during Matan Torah? And here's the other important insight for a successful relationship and a successful marriage. When we initially step into the beginning of a relationship, there's this stage that is very, very, very exciting. There's a stage that some people just call an infatuation, right? There's a stage of a being in love. Some people experience this more than others. Don't be afraid if you haven't. Some people live more in their head. Some people live more in their heart. But for many people, there is an overwhelming excitement that takes over at the very beginning. And then as someone who's been married for a year, 2, 3, that original kind of burst calms down and tapers off. And then, so to speak, what we call true life kicks in. Suddenly I notice differences in him. And suddenly I notice that, these things make me nervous. These things bother me. And I start to wonder, is this really a relationship? Did I really marry the right person? And so what we need to know about that initial state of excitement is, that is not just a silly infatuation. That is, in fact, a prophecy. It is a taste of what could be through a lot of work that comes in marriage, through the commitment and through working out the marriage in a way of viadat, in a way of getting to know your spouse, having compassion, having kindness, trying to be understanding, etc., over the years, and really truly getting to know the person better. And in that way, we actually bring that excitement and closeness back, but in a way that's lasting, in a way that's true. And that's something that happened to us at Matan Torah. By Matan Torah, nitan hakol, everything was given to us. All the Torah that we'll ever see was given. But what we had at that time is God revealed himself. And so we were completely head over heels in love. And that's what's missing now. God took it away because he didn't want us to have a bread of shame. He didn't want us to, sometimes, I don't know, some people relate, some people won't, but as a Challah, before you were married, when you got gifts from the chassan, sometimes you feel a little bit like there's something a little silly about it, or something a little bit undeserved, right? You feel a little like, not an embarrassment, but like a shyness about it. Like, what does this have to do with me? If he was engaged to someone else, wouldn't he give it to someone else? Like, there's something a little, so, and then as we go through marriage and we work together and we go through things together, and then we get to know each other and we have these personal jokes, etc. And then after a few months or a few years, when we have a deeper relationship and we receive a gift from our spouse, suddenly there's just a delight. There's this different kind of pleasure, a pleasure of deserving, a pleasure of appropriateness. You know what this is, you share a bond. The present reflects a deeper bond that is there, that has been worked on by both sides. And so Hashem, too, the kindness that Hashem gave us, I'm going to present the next page where we see this. Hine kol inyan shenimshu lemala b'shas matan Torah mikol makom kidei shelo yeh ze ba'ofen nama d'chisufa el ba'ofen shel avoda mavia l'schar v'chulu. God revealed all of himself at Matan Torah. We had that vision. This is how it could be if we maintain this bond. Then God pulled it away. I'm not just going to throw empty gifts at you without you feeling deserving. I'm considerate of you. I want you to step into this and get to know me. We should get to know each other. We should work together. We should work on transforming this world together, not out of my holding you captive with my revelations. And this is what we're doing now. We work to leida, to know and to know and to know and to get closer and closer to God, so that when God reveals himself again, we will have earned that. That's something that we will understand and internalize because it's us. We've worked on it. We get it. Okay. So ואז צריך להיות עבודה להמשיך תמיד עניינים אלו שנסגלו בש"ס מתן תורה. And so now, as we work in Galus, it's our work that continually draws down and pulls godliness into the world again. So what's the difference of the Torah Chadasha, right? What's the new, if we already received the Torah in Matan Torah, what's the new Torah that we're going to have during Matan Torah? The new is not new information, but the new is in our new seeing, what we're going to see. So right now, right, we see the physical and we can only hear. Torah is in a way of shmiya, right? Torah is in a way of just hearing. We hear about God. We try to visualize God in our mind's eye, but it all seems a little bit abstract and a little bit distant. And so we're not going to have that problem in the future because there's going to be something new. God is going to say, okay, we're going to have a chuppah and kiddusha now. Now I'm going to reveal myself to you. We're going to be truly united on every single level. Okay. So just like we prepared for at the end here, just like we prepared for the first Matan Torah with the learning, with studying Torah, this is how we need to prepare as well for the coming Shavuos, and also in general, right? When we teach our children, there's the ABCs. There's first of all, you do the mitzvah, because there is the mitzvah is the unity, the mitzvah is the bond, right? Hashem did say, the Rebbe told us very, very clearly, we don't have to run, learning retreats in order to for that to be the first step for a Jewish person to come closer, right? We go out there and we do mitzvahs, because bottom line, every time a Jew does a mitzvah, they are 100% within the union with Hashem, which is the most important thing. That bond is happening whether or not they understand. But afterwards, the more mitzvahs we do, when someone starts to ask questions, and when our child asks questions, when there's a curiosity, why do we do the mitzvahs? Why do we do the Torah? This is where Yadata as Hashem, we need to tell our children, this is a relationship. Our neshama yearns for this. If you go out there and you party in all kinds of different ways that make you happy superficially, that will be okay for a while. But that yearning cannot, the yearning of the neshama is for that relationship, for the bond that began Matan Torah, where we became one. There's no way to escape that anymore. And the more we step out of people's way, right? The more we step out of our way by not bringing superficial reasons and by not fighting with people over this, right? By saying, oh, it's true, you do have free choice. Everyone does have free choice, but this is the reason to opt in. And I'm not talking about very little children right now, right? I'm talking about, let's say, teenagers or adults who already have their own mind. They're beyond the age of, where we can try to control their behavior. In fact, we should never try to control someone's behavior, right? But at that point, when someone's expressing that they don't want to do Torah mitzvahs, their real cry is, I don't understand. I don't feel connected. I don't hear the yearning. I don't feel the yearning. That's the cry. And we should see it in that way, right? It's not, it's such a plea from inside, and therefore we need to teach even more, right? Like, and make sure that what we're teaching is the deepest reason the connection, the unity, the bond with God. And of course, as with a marriage, if there's not intimacy, right? If there's just compliance and then it's very, very hard for a person to stay in it. Even if there's pleasure and delight, right? If there's not intimacy, if there's not knowing each other and caring about each other, then it's very hard to stay in it. Similar to in Yiddishkeit, right? Even if it's full of prizes and full of competitions where kids win and they, get trips to Israel and all good things. But if there isn't in addition the Yedias Hashem, the Chassidus, the really cracking open books and learning about God within inside, we'd be missing something. So just to end off with a bracha, that God willing, as this Shavuos approaches, we really should receive the full Yediah of Hashem. God should reveal himself to us. Hashem should reveal himself to us. Let me just stop sharing the screen so I could see everyone. As this Shavuos comes, let's remember that we're renewing the vows. We're stepping into this relationship again. We should drop any fear that we have of the world, right? Right now, all the superficial boundaries are falling away. So it really is an ideal and amazing time to focus on what's real, to focus on what's lasting, to focus on the delight of learning Torah, the delight of doing mitzvahs. There's a lot of talk today about, especially when you're involved in a lot of work of kindness, maybe you have a lot of clients or, raising a lot of little children and where we used to feel so, where we used to be able to drop our war of, me versus God, right? The Nefesh Bahami versus the Nefesh Eliki. When you're involved on a day-to-day in so much kindness, there is a relief that comes with that of not having to search for ways to be meaningful, right? But the world interferes with that. The world starts yelling and screaming at us, don't forget self-care, don't forget me time, don't forget, right? So there's the basic of course, when your children are eating, sit down and eat with them, right? That's not self-care. That's part of being a good mom. When you're tired at night and you have the opportunity to sleep, don't scroll through, the internet for hours or waste time otherwise. Go to sleep. That's part of being a good mom. That's not self-care. That's family care. But in other words, we don't have to listen to the messages of the world saying, self. If you've felt that those messages have burdened you more, that in addition to the kindness and the mitzvahs, you feel that now you also have an additional project of making time to go out and do this, making time to read that, and it interferes, it doesn't seem to invigorate you, you can have full permission from the Rebbe and from Hashem that as long as your focus is kindness, and you're doing it in a Torah way, which is in a way that does take care of your health, right? You are eating, you are sleeping, you're doing it in a Torah way of taking care of your body. It's okay if we do forget ourselves and we completely throw ourselves into the relationship, right? Hashem, I'm here for only a certain amount of time. I'm going to do as much as I can to make this world a better place. It's too exciting. I don't have time to stop and listen to the world's voice telling me indulge. So going into Shavuos, ve'arastichli la'olam, Hashem already betrothed us to him. We are already in the relationship. We are excited about V'yadatas Hashem. We're excited about being united with him again and seeing the revelation. This is a bracha that we should always bond as Hasidim, as families, over the mutual excitement of godly excitement of the opportunities we have to really make this world just such a fun, beautiful, amazing, pleasant place, godly place. And may we go ahead and do that and have Mashiach now.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Fromaita. Thank you, E.T.
for the beautiful, inspiring words. Hashem should give you all the brachas you need. And whoever is on, thank you for being on. You all have the schus. We all have the schus to be part of this amazing convention, Rebbe convention. This convention is the Rebbe's convention. And I want to just share with you, the next speaker is Prumaita Shapiro. You can listen to her teaching a siche, Tazria Metzora, Tovshinun Aleph, one of the first siches the Rebbe said after Chavches Nisan, when he told us, two was you can't do everything you can to bring Moshiach. So whoever can, don't miss out. It's such a gishmak siche that she is teaching about learning Moshiach and Geula. Amazing, so enjoy. Now we want to share with you again tonight, Erev Shabbos, Malich Ben Shun, we would like all of us together, try to bench licht a little earlier, give additional tzedakah, and daven to Hashem for the Geula Mitzvah Shlema, for Moshiach, and daven to Hashem for all our friends and for all Yidden, for Refuahs and Yeshuas and all the brachas we need. Tomorrow is Shabbos Achdus, Shabbos before Shavuos. The Shabbos will all get together as one. And this year Hashem wants us to be each one in our homes. We're still connected with a tremendous bond with Hashem and with each other. So we are suggestions that all of us in Nshei Chabad around 5:30 should say the capital of the Rebbe, Melech HaMoshiach, and the capital of the Rebbetzin, and then learn together. By learning the same Torah, it unites us even more. So to learn together a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, Perek Zayin, Mishnah Aleph. You can find it in the Surface of the Likutei Sichos Chelek Daled, page 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can learn any Mishnah, of course, connected with Moshiach and Geula. So everybody should have a wonderful Shabbos. We should spend it together in Yerushalayim with our Rebbe. Just to go over the programs, Emir Hashem, Motzei Shabbos, 9:45. We have an amazing program where Mrs. Luba Perlov, the Russian representative, will share an amazing, inspiring story, the journey of her life. Sunday morning, 12 o'clock, we have Mrs. Rochi Pinson, who will teach us beautiful insight in the month of Sivan, Sunday Rosh Chodesh Sivan. And then we have again an amazing lecturer, Menucha Shochat from California, who's going to teach us, following Iti, Lekabel, Hatzatoyre, Besimcha, Pnimius, and we are preparing for Torah Chadosha. The main session is Emir Hashem, 3 o'clock. We hope we should be in 7:70 as usual. Again, an amazing program. We read the Rebbe's letter. We're going to have greetings from Iceland, Eretz Yisrael, France, guest speaker, Mrs. Jana Ginsburg, chair lady, Mrs. Miriam Swerdlow, and much more, Emir Hashem. So we want to thank everybody who's on. Please tell your friends. More people should join. It's a tremendous, tremendous truth to be part of the Rebbe's convention. So good Shabbos to everyone, and Moshiach now. יחי אדוננו מורנו ורבנו מלך המשיח לעולם ועד.
Mrs. Frama Ita Shapiro will now share with us from Sefer Hasichos Nun Aleph, Parshas Tazria, Mitzera.
Also.
I have to put myself back on. You're leaving everybody on. Are you muted everybody?
I think it has muted everybody. I don't know. Adina, try to talk. Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, so it shouldn't. Okay, let me try that again. Hold on. Okay, now everyone's muted. So now you have to unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect. Okay.
Great. All right. So first of all, thank you, Etsy, for making this happen. I have to say that when your text came in yesterday, what's Sicha? I'm like, oh, yes, what's Sicha? So that was really good. So thank you for that. It's really exciting, actually, to be living this year because we are, like, step by step going along with the same year that the Rebbe spoke in Tafshin and Aleph, the famous Sikha of Chav Ches Nisan, and all of these weeks are literally the last Sikhais that we have from the Rebbe for each of these weeks until, of course, the coming of Mashiach. It should be Tikov Miyad Mamish. So if we can try to relive with that same energy of what it felt like when the Rebbe first said, Tudal Plasir Kent, we have to do everything we can to bring Mashiach, and it was such confusion and such turmoil, like what does the Rebbe mean, what are we supposed to be doing? And then this week, that we should be doing to everything is all about Mashiach these days, and therefore we're going to connect the parsha to Mashiach, we're going to connect the time to Mashiach, we're going to connect the video to Mashiach, we're going to connect the Torah to Mashiach. Everything is all going to tie back to the Gula and how we're able to finally come to the final Gula. And that first part of the parsha, taking away different connections that we see between the parsha and the Gula. The parsha is here in Torah. We have these, sections that about us right away. First of all, is speaking about birth, and we know the name is describing the woman giving birth. Well, giving birth is compared to the birth of Gula. She gives birth to a male child, so the male child doesn't have anything that changes afterwards, like your husband, the male form on the last level, which comes giving birth to a final Gula. So that's Parsha. Then we have Parsha Mitzvah. Parsha on the name of Mashiach. Mashiach is a Mitzvah. It's called the Mitzvah of Israel, the Mitzvah of his household. And he describes that because while he is in Galus, he suffers the pains of the Yidden in Galus. He's described as among them, his was wounded through Galus, and that's what Mashiach is called, like the Messiah. So here we see that both parts of the
Hi. Hi. Hello. Hi.
Or anything.
Can't hear anything.
Yeah, right. I can't hear anything either.
Irina, we can't hear anything.
Not one word.
We lost the speaker.
We can't hear anything.
So first of all, thank you, Etsy, for making this happen. I have to say that when your text came in yesterday, like, what sicha? I'm like, oh, yes, what sicha? So that was really good. So thank you for that. It's really exciting, actually, to be living this year because we are We expect it actually to be living this year because we are.
First it was choppy, now I can't hear anything.
By step, going along with the same year that the Rebbe spoke in Tafshin and Aleph,
Much better.
the famous Sikha of Chavches Nisan, and all of these weeks are literally the last Sikhais that we have from the Rebbe for each of these weeks until, of course, the coming of Mashiach. It should be Tikov Miyad Mamish. So if we could try to relive with that same energy of what it felt like when the Rebbe first said, Tut was ihr kennt, we have to do everything we can to bring Mashiach, and it was such confusion and such turmoil, like what does the Rebbe mean, what are we supposed to be doing, and meetings and discussions and Braidings, and everybody was back and forth. And then Baruch Hashem, this week, Parshas Tazria Mitzayra, the Rebbe spoke this totally incredible Sikha that we're about to learn, where the Rebbe laid out exactly what it is that we should be doing to get to the times of Mashiach. So with that in mind, let's go into the Sikha. So the Rebbe starts out by saying that everything is all about Mashiach these days, and therefore we're going to connect the Parsha to Mashiach, we're going to connect the time to Mashiach, we're going to connect the Pirkei Avos to Mashiach, we're going to connect the Sphira to Mashiach. Everything is all going to tie back to the Geula and how we're able to finally come to the final Geula. And the Rebbe first starts with the Parsha, taking a look at different connections that we see between the Parsha and the Geula. So Parsha Tazria Mitzayra, we have these, connections that jump out to us right away. First of all, Parsha Tazria is speaking about birth. And we know the name, Parsha Tazria, is describing a woman giving birth, and a woman giving birth is compared to the birth of Geula. Especially in the pasuk here, Isha ki tazria v'yalda zachar, she gives birth to a male child. So the male child is the symbol of something that doesn't have anything that changes afterwards, like Shir Chadash is the male form of song, the last song that we'll sing when Mashiach comes. And so it's talking about giving birth to a final Geula. So that's Parshas Tazria. Then we have Parshas Mitzayra. And Parshas Mitzayra, one of the names of Mashiach is that Mashiach is a Mitzayra. He's called the Mitzayra of Beis Rabbi, the Mitzayra of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi's household. And the reason he's described as a Mitzayra is because while he is in Galus, he suffers the pains of the Yidden in Galus. He's described like a person who's sitting among all the beggars, and they're all with their different wounds and their different bandages, and Mashiach is among them with his wounds, wounded through Galus. And that's why Mashiach is called like the Mitzayra of Beis Rabbi. So here we see that both Parshas Tazria and Parshas Mitzayra are connected to the Geula, especially because Parshas Mitzayra talks about how to make the Mitzayra tahar, how to make him pure, similar to the process of taking Mashiach from his state of Galus and bringing him into his state of Geula. Okay, all of that is really beautiful, but now we have a bunch of questions. First of all, how can you put these two parshas together, Tazria and Mitzayra? Tazria is talking about the birth of Geula. Mitzayra is describing Mashiach during his state of Galus while he's still experiencing the pains of Galus. How can you combine those together? Especially, take a look at the order. First you have Tazria, and then you have Mitzayra. That doesn't make any sense. Tazria is describing already the birth of Geula, and then Mitzayra seems to go backwards, going back into the time of when Mashiach is still pained through the experience of Galus. And if we take a look at within the parshas themselves, we see that the teichen of the parsha doesn't seem to match the name of the parsha. Parsha Tazria is describing the birth of Geula. So if you go to the actual parsha itself, the majority of the parsha is actually describing how a person becomes tamei, which is the last person see that the teichen of the parsha doesn't seem to match the name of the parsha. Parshas Tazria is describing this birth of Geula, but if you go through the actual parsha itself, the majority of the parsha is actually describing how a person becomes tamei with tsaras, how a person ends up becoming afflicted with tsaras, or declared that he has tsaras. So the name of the parsha seems to be describing a Geulatic experience, and the teichen of the parsha seems to be describing the Golus experience, the experience of becoming afflicted with tsaras. And then with Mitzaira, Parshas Mitzaira, we have the exact opposite going on. The name of the Parshas Mitzaira, which signifies Mashiach during his Galus state while he's pained in Galus. But the teichen of the Parsha, the content of the Parsha, is all about the Tahara of the Mitzaira, how he goes from his state of Galus into his state of Geula, how he is purified out of the state of Tzaras. So once again, how can the names of the Parsha be the opposite of what the Parsha ends up being about? And finally, our last question, why would the name of Mashiach be Mitzaira? The name of something signifies his essence. Is the name of Mashiach, is his very essence, his painful state during Galus? Does that make sense? We would think that Mashiach's name should be more something that connects to his state once he comes to the time of Geula. Why do we call his name Mitzaira? Okay, so what we're seeing here is this very funny combination where on the one hand we're having ideas that are connected to Geula, and then we have ideas that are connected to Galus, and they seem to be overlapping with each other. We have Tazria, we have Mitzaira, we have the content of the Parshas, we have the name of Mashiach being something that's more associated with the pain of Galus. What's with all this overlapping that's going on here between Galus and Geula? And so to appreciate all of this, the Rebbe goes into Eis Daled. I'm not going to do it inside, I'm going to summarize it, but he goes on to say, let's first understand, according to Chassidus, what really is this whole idea of tzaras. And this is probably something that you're familiar with. In Chassidus it's explained that Adam, the pasuk that describes the person who's getting tzaras, is called an Adam. Adam is actually considered one of the high levels of a person. When a person is called with the term Adam, we're talking about an elevated level of a person. So why would this person get tzaras? And so what it really explains is that it's actually just the most superficial and barely any kind of issue that the person has. He's really worked through all of his core issues, and now he has the most minor, more superficial kinds of issues going on, and they show up not in core organs, not something that's really deep within his flesh, but on the most superficial way on the outside of his body, on his skin. And even within his skin, it's not like all over his skin. There's areas, there's patches, it comes upon the skin. It's not like an actual, part and parcel of his skin. So we're talking about a person who's really in a really good place, and he just has very, very minor things that kind of are still getting sucked into negativity and showing up in the form of tzaras. And not only that, but in other places in Chassidus it explains that really the marks of tzaras are actually very, very high lights. Our iris al-yanim are very, very exalted lights. And because they're such exalted lights, they could end up not having a proper keli within to be expressed, and because there's no proper keli to be expressed, that's why they end up getting sort of captured by negativity and coming down in this form of tzaras. But really, in their source, in their shayrish, they're actually iris hayanim. They're actually these very, very exalted lights. So what we're seeing over here is that if we take a look into the real meaning of what tzaras is, what tzaras really is very exalted lights that need to have a proper keli to come into. And as long as we could give it that proper keli, not only will it not turn into the negative form of tzaras, it will actually be something very, very positive. It will actually be something very powerful. And this is similar to the concept of ratzoi and shuv, that you can have a tremendous rush towards Elokus, a tremendous exalted connection to Hashem. But if that very exalted connection to Hashem doesn't come down into a keli, it doesn't come down into a proper expression down here, it could end up being sort of sidetracked into something negative. An example that's given in Chassidus is, let's say a person davens, or sometimes it happens that a person could go to a Braiding, whatever it is, and he's in this really, really elevated mood through the ruchnistic experience that he came away with by the Braiding, or he came away with through the davening, but he doesn't immediately apply it into something practical. He doesn't give it a shuv. He doesn't give it a proper keli to come down into. That same inspiration, that same emotional feeling that he's having towards Hashem could end up getting sidetracked, chas v'shalom, into a taiva or into a negative midah. In other words, from that elevated state, the person could actually turn around and blow up into anger or give in to some sort of taiva. that he wouldn't normally necessarily give into. So what ended up happening is that you had this tremendous ratzoi, and because it didn't have a proper keli to come down into, it was sort of taken over by negativity, and that's similar to what happens with saras. Saras is these very, very elevated lights, and because there is no proper shuv, because there is no proper keli, what ends up happening, it ends up turning into this negative form. But even within the negativity, just something very superficial, just on the outside of the skin. So how do we heal that, so to speak? How do we make sure that that doesn't happen? And the answer is you have to have shuv. But it's really hard to make a matching shuv to this ratzah. In other words, if a person's on this like really tremendously exalted high lights in terms of what they're tapping into, how can they actually create a keli that is really able to take in all of that and make it into something practical here in this world? The answer is whenever you're trying to combine two opposites, you have to have something higher than either one of them. And in this case, when we're trying to combine this feeling of ratzoi and shuv, you have to have something higher to bring them together. And that force, that higher that brings them together, is the force of bittul to Hashem. When a person just has that absolute bittul to Hashem, they're able to bring that information into a practical keli down here. What do we use? What is our tool that we use to have that bittul to Hashem? The answer to that is Torah. When a person learns Torah, when a person follows what Torah says, it gives them that I guess you could say like the third force that is able to combine these two together. And that's why when it describes the process of the Metzayra becoming purified, it uses the expression Tairas HaMetzayra, the Taira of how the Metzayra is able to be purified, because it is literally the learning of Taira and the connection to Taira that gives us that ability to combine two opposites together. And in terms of spherais, we know that the sphere that corresponds to the learning of Taira is the sphere of Tiferes. You may be familiar when we talk about like Yaakov Avinu, that Avram Avinu is Chesed, and Yitzchak is Gvura, and Yaakov is Tiferes. And what does Yaakov mean? Yaakov is Tiferes is connected to Tiferes, and this meat of Tiferes is able to combine those two opposites together, is able to bring them together, and that is able to then show something that is just like a tremendously high thing is able to come down in our world, not in a negative way, but rather in a positive way. So let's try to now connect this back to the coming of Mashiach. What's the process of bringing Mashiach into the world? The process of bringing Mashiach into the world is not changing the world. Rather, the world itself already has all of these tremendous positive lights. That's what Galus is. Galus is the very powerful light similar to the powerful lights of Taras. And what has to happen is simply showing how So it's actually these very, very powerful lights, but it shows up in our world in a negative way. Similar to the way Taras are these very powerful lights, but then end up showing up in the form of the Tumah of the Taras. So how do we cure that? How do we take care of that? We don't have to get rid of it. We simply have to show what it really is. We simply have to reveal what it really is. And that's why the expression that's used for the Metzayra becoming pure is that he becomes pure on the day, right? The Yom Taharasai, the day of his purity. Day meaning light, simply bringing light into the situation. We can open up our eyes and suddenly we see, whoa, there's something different going on than what we first thought was happening here. So let's say in terms of the Taras, when we first looked at the Taras, it's this negative thing, it's Tumah. How do we purify it? Not by taking it away, but simply by opening up our eyes or bringing light into the situation so we can now see the positive of what's really going on over here. And so too when it comes to the bringing of Mashiach, the Geula. The Geula doesn't have to be getting rid of the Galus. The Geula actually comes through the Galus itself, through showing how all the negativity that we're experiencing in Galus really is just an expression of very, very high lights that couldn't come down into a proper keli. And the Geula means creating that proper keli, so we should be able to then see the incredible high lights that are making up the Galus. Let's take this back now to Parshas Tazria Matzaira. So on page 495, Eis Ches. Al Pizah Muvan HaKesher VaHashaychus Behemshech Parshas Tazria Matzaira, Geula and Galus. So now we can understand the Parshiyos, first of all, the connection between the two of them and how one leads into the next. First we have Tazria. Tazria seems to be symbolizing Geula, right, the birth of Geula. And then we have Matzaira, which seems to be symbolizing Galus. So we have the Inyan Hanagayim of Parshas Tazria. We have the concept of the how a person becomes full of tzaras, which is described in Parshas Tazria. And then we have how the person becomes purified in Parshas Matzaira. And they all seem to be overlapping with each other. That's not an issue. Why? Kevan sheha geula hi, because the geula is lying in b'fnei atmai. It's not like a whole new world. It's not its own thing. Rather, it's hiskalus and yanei ha'amiti shal ha'galus. On the top of page 495. Rather, it's simply revealing the real truth of what the galus is. Similar to the Tara of the Matzaira is Megala, the truth of what's happening in his tzaras. Therefore, when we take a look at the system of how the parashas are set up, the parsha starts out like this. We start out with this general overview to both parashiyos, and that is what's happening here is Geula. Isha ki tazriya v'yoda zachar. What's happening here is the final Geula. We are planting the seeds of Geula, and this will bring us to the final Geula. Then we go into the details of how that happens. In Parshas Tazria, Medubar b'inyan hanagayim galus. So in Parshas Tazria, which really should be the Parsha of Geula, what do we talk about? We talk about galus. We talk about the marks of the Matzaira. Why? Because as we explained earlier, Kevan shahanagayim hem iris al yayin, because these marks are actually these very high lights. Sheyumshechu v'yiskalu lamata beGeula, and what will happen when Mashiach comes? They will simply be drawn down and revealed through the process of Geula. And then when we go into Parshas Matzaira, which seems to be a Galus Parsha, what's really happening in Galus is the Taras Hanagayim, which is Geula. Because Kevan Shataras Hanagayim, he ayidei hiskalus and yanim ha'amiti shal Hanagayim, because how do you bring about the purity of the Matzaira is by showing what the Tzaras really is, what Galus really is. So here you see that there's this incredible overlap between Galus and Geula. They're not two separate worlds. They're totally connected to each other. And the Rebbe mentions here the very famous Vart that he goes into more detail next Shabbos, Parshas Acharei Ma'as Kadeshim. But here the Rebbe does mention that you see this connection, this overlap between Geula and Geula, between exile and redemption, and that really their letters are all the same. The only difference is that you add an aleph into the Galus, into the Geula, and that turns it into Geula. What is that aleph? It's the aleph of sight. It's the aleph of seeing Hashem's presence. It's the aleph of recognizing the real truth about what the Galus is all about. So what we're seeing here, that what is the Geula? It's the positive side of Tzaras. It's not something negative, rather it's revealing what the Tzaras really is all about. Then the Rebbe goes on into how this also connects to Parshas Acharei Ma'as Kadeshim. Also, very beautiful, interesting things. But I want to skip ahead on page 496 to the last paragraph of Eis Ches. So what we're seeing so far is that Matzaira, although it seems to be symbolizing something negative, it seems to be symbolizing the Galus, really is showing us that the process of Geula is taking the Galus and showing the Galus for what it really is, that it really is these very high exalted lights. And this is all more emphasized in the name of Mashiach. This is one of the questions that we had earlier on in the Sikha. Why would we call the Goyim? Why would we call the Redeemer Shenikra B'Shem Matzaira? Why would we call him a Matzaira? And here is the reason why. Matzaira shel Beis Rebbe, the Matzaira of the house of Rebbe. And the answer is that yes, Yisiv Bina Ani Yasev Lechalayim, he's among all these poor people who are all suffering from these illnesses. Menugayim V'hu Nami Menuga, they're all afflicted, and he too is afflicted. And what that tells us is that Mashiach Nimtza Ba'olam Bizman Umakam Hagalas. What that tells us is that Mashiach is here. He's in this world. He's in this time. He's in this place, in our Galus with us. Ubamatzav Shal Galus, and he's in a situation of Galus. Like it's described, Sheseva Tachliya HaGalus. He's suffering the pains of Galus. And the Rebbe brings here in the Gemara that the rest of the Gemara describes that the people in the times of Rebbe, the one who's being described here as the Mitzayer of Beis Rabbi, actually said, that if Mashiach is from those that are alive today, it is Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi. Why did they pinpoint Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi as being Mashiach of the generation? That on the one hand, he was this incredible tzaddik, he was a perfect tzaddik. On the other hand, he suffered physically. And his physical suffering was the suffering of being in Galus. So what's happening here is that Mashiach lives with us in Galus. He goes through all the suffering of Galus. He's present in our Galus. And he's waiting. He's like, he can't wait. He's just yearning to be able to be revealed. Meaning, to be able to go out of this covered situation where you can't really see what's going on and transform it into Melech HaMashiach. That he should then be transformed into the Melech HaMashiach, the one who's Gayal Es Yisrael Begula Mitzvah Shlema. She'ein acharei hagalus, that doesn't have any galus after it. So this is why Mashiach is called with the name Mitzaira, because it's pinpointing this idea that the way to bring Mashiach is through the process of Galus. Mashiach is in Galus with us. He's with us in all of the suffering, and in that process, he is yearning and waiting to get to the revelation of what's really happening here, which is that he's really Mashiach, and that he's here to take us out of Galus. And then in footnote 67, the Rebbe brings down the continuation of this very interesting Gemara where all of these different names are described as being the name of Mashiach. And each name is a name of the teacher of that group, whoever was the Rebbe of that group. They show how the name of Mashiach is that teacher's name. And the Rebbe lists all the different names of them. Of course, one of them is also the name Menachem. And then on page 497, the Rebbe continues and says, and we Hasidim continue in their ways. We answer after them. And we do the same thing with our Rebbeim. I don't know if you can see where I'm following along over here by Ha'ara 67 on page 497. V'anan Hasidim nanei avasrehu, that we answer after them, meaning we continue in this way of looking to the name of our Rebbe as being the name of Mashiach. When it comes to the names of our Rebbeim, and especially and then the Rebbe goes through the Frierdiker Rebbe's name and shows how each name of the Frierdiker Rebbe is also connected to Geula. I just want to also point out an interesting thing here. When this Sikha was first written up by the Chayzrim, by the people who took the Rebbe's spoken word and wrote it up into an essay form, into the written word, so they took this concept, what does it mean that Mashiach is Ma'is and Shechayin Achshav, that Mashiach is from those who are alive today, and they understood it to mean that it connects to, the Rebbe connected it to the Rambam, where the Rambam says that Yamid Melech Mebeis David, that Mashiach arises from the house of David, and the whole psak of the Rambam of what kind of person Mashiach has to be. So they understood that what the Rebbe was saying is that the Rambam is passing that Mashiach has to be from those who are alive today in Galus. And if you take a look in Ha'ara 66, originally that's what the Ha'ara said. The Ha'ara said that the Rambam is implying to us that Mashiach has to be from those who are alive today. The Rebbe actually crossed that out, and instead you can see here what the Rebbe ended up leaving, what the Rebbe ended up changing that to is Hainu Shehu Kvar Malach. What the Rambam is telling us is that Mashiach has to have been a person who already functioned in this world as a king, as a Jewish leader. In other words, he doesn't just pop onto the scene suddenly as Malach HaMashiach. He already has a history with the Jewish people of having been their Melech, of having been their leader, and then he continues or comes back in the form of Malach HaMashiach. So I thought that was an interesting thing that the Rebbe clarified for us, not to interpret the Rambam as that Mashiach has to be from those who are alive right now, but rather to understand what the Rambam is implying is that Mashiach has to have had the history of being a Melech, a leader of the Jewish people, before he goes into his function of Melech HaMashiach. All right, let's continue on. So what we have so far is that from Parshas Chazriya V'Tzaira, we see that there is this tremendous overlap between Galus and Geula. The whole process of Geula is simply revealing what the Galus really is, the truth of what the Galus really is. How do we do this? How do we finally reveal the truth of the Galus? So let's go to Eis Tes. Here we're going to learn from the Pirkei Avos of this Shabbos. And the Pirkei Avos of this Shabbos is Perek Sheni. And what does it say? It starts out with the words, Rabbi Aimer, again, Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi. What does he tell us? Eza hi derech yeshara. What is the straight path? Sheyaver leiha adam, that a person should go upon. And the answer is, Kol shehi tiferes leisah, v'tiferes leimin ha'adam. That which is tiferes, that which is, I guess, beautiful for L'Isah, for the one who made him, the Tiferes Leimena Adam, and for people. So the Rebbe goes and lists a whole bunch of questions and analyzes this, but bottom line, the Rebbe touches it up like this. Adam here, again, is referring to a person on this very exalted level. In terms of us as the Jewish people, it's talking about our generation. It's talking about the Jewish people who are already at this tremendously high level. We've already done, the Jewish people as a whole have already done all the work of Galus. We're done with it all. We're finished. We're literally at the last seconds, heading into Geula. So what is the Derech Yeshara? What is the right path that people who are holding at that time in history, which is our time, we've already done it all, we're already holding at the level of Adam, we're ready for Mashiach to come. What is the Derech Yeshara? What's the straight path to finally get us to that place, to finally get us to the complete Geula? And the answer is, and that's why it's said in the name of Rebbe, because as we said before, Rebbe is the one who was like the Mashiach of his generation. So how do we do this? How do we make it happen? Let's read the Rebbe's question inside on page 497, last paragraph on the page. So the question that's being asked here is, since we've already done all of our work, everything that had to get done in Galus, what is now the direct path? What is the way, the easy and fast way from all the different ways that are available, that we, the Jewish people, should go upon? We, Adam, we who have finished all the work of Galus, what should we do to finally bring about the revelation of Mashiach? And Rebbe brings down in footnote 74, and this isn't just the total revelation of Mashiach, it's also each person's personal Geula. How do I finally achieve that Geula pratis that I need in my own personal life? And what's our answer? The answer is going to be Tiferes. Tiferes, as we said before, is the learning of Torah. On the top of page 498, Tiferes Kai al Torah, Tiferes Zumat and Torah. When a person learns Torah, that is how they're able to come to that place of Geula. Because what does Torah do? So as the Mishnah says, Tiferes Le'isah, but Tiferes Le'mena Adam. It's able to connect those two sides, like we described earlier in the Sikha, the Ratzoi and the Shuv, the one that's pulling us up to be close to Hashem, but at the same time, how do we make it grounded in something down here in this world? So the learning of Torah is what does that for us. When a person learns Torah, it enables him to combine those two worlds together. And especially on today's very special day of Beis Iyar, what is the whole theme of Beis Iyar, the Rebbe Marash's birthday? Tiferes Shebet Tiferes. So how much more so do we have a kayach on today's day to combine these two aspects, the Ratzei and the Shuv, the two different sides, and bring them together? And of course, this is epitomized in the Rebbe Marash's theme motto, right? L'chatchila riber, that the Chatchila riber tells us that in this world, we have the ability to go above and beyond this world. And that comes through the learning of Torah. When a person is constantly involved in learning Torah, it gives them the ability in this world to be able to go above the world. Then the Rebbe goes on to say that the Sphira of Shabbos, which is Malchus, mountain move, the king is here. In other words, everything, nothing stands in the way of the Melucha of the Melech. We're talking about Melech Mashiach and his Melucha. We're talking about a situation where nothing can stand in the way of Mashiach's Melucha. There's no menagdim, there's nothing that's stopping it. And what's the path, what's the way that we get to that is specifically through Tiferes. So Malchus Shebet Tiferes, we want to bring about the full kingship of Melech HaMashiach with nothing standing in his way. We do it through Tiferes, we do it through the learning of Torah. Let's jump ahead to the Rebbe's Haira. What does the Rebbe want us to do with all of this? So going to Eis Yud B is on page 501. Ubir Haderach Yeshar Lehiskalas Abiyas HaMashiach. Let's explain what is the direct path to bring about the revelation and the coming of Mashiach. It's going to be through Malchus Shebet Tiferes. How do we explain this? What does this mean in terms of our actions? Let's first preface this by saying, Mashiach is ready to come now. But practically speaking, he's still not here. So that means there has to be some last little thing that we have to do. Every Jew has to be doing something, the last little thing, to bring Mashiach. And the way that we're going to do this is through Tiferes, is through Torah, meaning the Malchus of Mashiach as it is brought about through Torah, like we explained earlier. Because when we do this, it's able to bring out the Melucha of Mashiach in a very pneumistic way within us. Ubapashtos, next paragraph. Tiferes hu inyan limit ha-Torah. When a person learns Torah, and not just Stam Torah, but Malchus Shabbat Tiferes. We're talking about limud HaTorah b'inyanei Melech HaMashiach u'b'inyanei HaGeula shenisparu b'riva mekaymes. So Malchus Shabbat Tiferes means learning Torah. Which aspects of Torah? The Torah of Inyanei Geula Mashiach, and go through all the different sources. And the Rebbe in the next paragraph lists endless sources of where there are places that talk about Mashiach. Torah Shabbat Torah Shabbat Peh, Nigla the Torah, Nister the Torah, Chassidus, the Torah of Arabeim, etc. Skip to the last paragraph of Isid Beis. And when we add in the learning of Torah, when we do this path of Malchus Shabbat Tiferes, that's the derech lifol hiskala sabias Mashiach, the Hagula b'payal mamish, to practically bring the Geula. V'al shal payal basi, the Rebbe says, I came here in a very, very practical way. And I want this to be publicized in every single place. In order to bring about the revelation and coming of Mashiach immediately, every Jewish person, ha'anashim, the men, and both types of men who their primary work is to be learning Torah, and men who their primary work is to be in business. And so too women and children. Each one, kol chad v'chad, l'fum shiur dilei, according to their abilities, l'haisif b'limud ha'Torah, and especially b'inyanei Mashiach and Geula, to add in learning of Geula. And it would be even better, the Rebbe says on the bottom of page 501, u'matayv shahalimud yihiyeh b'rabim b'asara, better that they should be learning in groups of 10, because in addition to the idea that any time 10 Jews get together, the Shekhinah is with them, in addition to that concept, we also have the Maila Miyuchedes, Yesh Maila Miyuchedes on page 502. Kishalayim de Minyanim Mashiach and Geula Barabim. When people learn Mashiach and Geula publicly, what happens? It brings his Hispilus v'Hasimcha b'Regesh Halev. It creates a greater emotion. We like play off each other. We all are able to sort of like build up this feeling together. Until it brings about a greater feeling, a greater desire, a greater yearning for the coming of Mashiach. And I hope that this is going to show up on our WhatsApp group this week, that we're going to be able to bring together a little bit about this tremendous feeling of how much we want Mashiach to be here, that comes from learning together about Mashiach. And together with that, and maybe this is something that we should add onto our routine on this phone call, that we start out first by giving tzedakah, and then we go into the learning. So we have the two together, both of tzedakah and of learning, and also that as you give tzedakah, you are learning because you have in mind that you are giving tzedakah to bring the geula. So Gedai tzedakah shemikarev es ha-geula. V'yihi ratzayin, Eis Yadalid. That the decision on all of this, Tamahar v'Tizari v'Tavi Teikaf v'Miyad, as Hatachlas HaMechuvan, should immediately bring about the real purpose of what we're trying to do. And what is that? Hiskalos Abias HaMashiach b'Payal Mamish, Teikaf Miyad Mamish, the revelation and the coming of Mashiach in actuality, and it should happen immediately. So as the Rebbe was speaking, he was speaking in Parshas Tazria, right? Shabbos Parshas Tazria. Isha ketazria v'yalda zachar. Zayis tiyah taras ha'mitzayra b'yom taharasai. Parshas Mitzayra, the purification of the Mitzayra. What should happen right now? Tihiyah leidas v'hiskalas Mashiach Tzidkenu. Right now, we should see the birth and the revelation of Mashiach Tzidkenu. And shezaychem l'shmaya ha'achraza. We should be able to hear the announcements throughout the entire world, and not just our world, but throughout all of the worlds. Shehine zeh, here he is. Mara be'etzvay v'emer, zeh melech ha'mashiach ba. Here is Mashiach coming. V'hine zeh k'vay kedushas mar v'cham yad mir nesiderinu. And here is the Rebbe. Kevan shehakitza v'ranu sheich ne'afar, because all those who rest in the dust will arise. The tzaddikim kamim l'tchiyah miyad, and tzaddikim will immediately arise. And here are all of our Rabbeinu Nesienu. And here are all the tzaddikim and the Nesim of the Jewish people, Moshe Aaron Imahim. And together with that, of course, all the Yidden will all go together. And if you see on page 503, the Rebbe goes on to say, V'aid v'hu ha'ikar shekol zeh na'aseh v'pel mamish. This shouldn't just happen in a theoretical manner. It shouldn't just happen in our imagination. It has to happen down here in a pel mamishtik way. Lamata ma'asar tzachim. To what extent does it have to be that? It should be so physical that we can make a bracha on it. Kach she'echayim l'heidas u'levarach aleidas v'hizgalas ha'mashiach. We should be able to make the bracha on the birth and the revelation of Mashiach. We should be able to say, Shehechiyanu, V'kiyamanu, V'higiyanu l'zman hazeh. And the Rebbe points out in footnote 134 that you don't make the bracha Shehechiyanu on a feeling in your heart. You can only make it on something that is there in front of you right then and there. So that's the kind of Mashiach that we want, something that is so like in our world that we're even able to make the bracha Shehechiyanu on it. And the term that we use in the bracha is V'higiyanu. Higiyanu is we've reached it, we're touching it. If you see in footnote 135, that we not only that it's being shown to us, but we're actually able to reach it. We're actually able to touch it. Reach out and touch. This is Malach HaMashiach, and may this happen. Tekef umiyad mamish.
Thank you. Do you have any